This podcast is sponsored by Tusk, a continuity of business solution for industries that struggle with traditional banking. Check them out on the web at tusk.network. The Rob McNealy program is the nexus of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and entrepreneurship. Now, welcome to the program. Today, we're talking to Elizabeth Cordero. She is a very influential entrepreneur in the Hispanic community, and she's an immigrant. And today, I wanted to talk about something that is very timely in the news. You're hearing a lot of things about immigration, pro and con, and it's become this real political hot potato. And one of the things that you hear from one side of the political spectrum is that immigrants are a net drain, or immigrants, are just, are leeches and parasites and all these really horrible things. But there's been a lot of studies to talk about that. In fact, entrepreneurs in this country are overwhelmingly immigrants, and immigrants are overwhelmingly job creators in this country. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about someone who I know is both an immigrant and a very successful entrepreneur. And I wanted to bring her on the show today. And her name is Elizabeth Cordero. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on, and I hate politics. People who listen to the show know that I sometimes will dive in and offer my opinions. But one of the things that I wanted to, just talk about is a little bit about what's it like to be an immigrant and an entrepreneur in the United States today. So, for the sake of the audience, can you give a little bit of a background of who you are and what do you do?
Yes. So I was born and raised in Mexico, in Veracruz, Mexico. So I came here at the age of 14. My mother had come before us when I was only 12. So I was pretty much living on my own with my oldest sister and my brother in Mexico while my mom came here to the United States first. Because we didn't have the means, not because we didn't, obviously if you're an immigrant, you would want to follow the rules, but sometimes you just don't have the money, the resources, or the means, or the knowledge. So my mom brought us here when I was 14. I crossed the desert with my sister. And so for us, it was a very difficult crossing. So we were pretty much, you put your life in danger, and you don't realize at the time how dangerous it is. But so I came here, obviously, without speaking English. I had to learn basic, I had to even learn how to open a water faucet. That's how little I knew. I had to learn the currency of the country. And I lived in a house with 20 other male immigrants in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom when I first arrived. We had to make a line in the bathroom of the house in order for us to use it. Today I do real estate investments. I've been a licensed realtor for about, I want to say 4 years, but out of those 4 years, I've probably been very active for the last 2.5. I own several rentals, and I do business in Utah, Texas, Houston, Texas, and Florida as well. And so that's kind of what I do.
So you landed here when you were 14. What was that like for you? Like coming here, not knowing the language, were you scared? Did you want to come here? Did you? Go on.
I think mainly I was sad. I was sad because it was a cultural shock. In Mexico, you're raised with your friends. So people usually don't move as often as they do here. So you're pretty much raised with a friend that becomes kind of like your sister. You have a very strong kind of friendship, family, and all these things. Like people don't have money, but they come together a lot. So when I came here, I was really, I was shocked because I've never seen people from other places, from other countries. So I come from a very small town, and so there aren't many people that are for foreign countries. So I would take pictures, it's like I saw somebody from Asia, I got to take a picture if I saw somebody. So it was shocking, but at the same time it was very sad because when you don't speak the language and you're put in a situation or of a room, just imagine anybody going right now of a language that you don't speak. And you're put into this room and you're supposed to learn and know and follow and do the work that everybody is expected to do, right, at school. And so I say sad because I really missed my home. I miss the culture. I miss what I grew up with. It's different. It's new, you know? So you don't know anything. You don't have any friends. You just come here. And the only person I knew was my mother and my sister and the other immigrants living in the house, but they're not my friends, right? And so I would really cry and tell my mom to send me back because I really wanted to go back, but I'm glad she didn't.
So you landed here and you ended up going to school, obviously. And how was that integration? How long did it take to kind of feel where you were comfortable and comfortable with the language and comfortable with the culture here?
I was very fortunate, like you said, to be able to go to school. When we arrived, my sister went straight to clean rooms at a hotel. I think at the time they're making like no more than 5.25 an hour. I was lucky enough to be able to go to school. And how was the integration? It was so I went to a school I was not supposed to go because they had an English as a second language program because I spoke zero English. Like they test you and I'm not able to say, I don't know what she's talking. She points at things and she expects me to say the things in English. And I just wave my head like, no, next. So I'm like, there's no way for this woman. She needs to go to this side. So I went to high school called Highline High. How was it? You know, you just don't know. You just don't know where you are. You just don't know where you're put in that situation. I just felt bad that sometimes I go to somebody and be like, what is the only question that you do know is asking another person that looks like you and asking them, what did he just say? Like, but people get tired of that. People get tired of you asking every single time, what is the teacher saying? I don't know what they want. I don't know what they're saying. Fortunately enough, I some of the stuff that I was learning here, I had already learned in Mexico. Math and all those things were a little bit more advanced. So for those things I kind of knew, but overall, you're really lost because you don't know what's really happening. You get an idea, you kind of get really good at reading body language if you're in an art class, you know, but you just, I want to say it's very challenging, to be honest. It's very challenging because you don't know in which situation you're in, but you just know you're put in that situation. Luckily, you start learning fast enough, you know, you have to, because some people just drop out of school because they can't, you know, it's hard. Like, how do you learn a language and go to school at the same time? You don't know, like they're not stopping to explain to you this subject. They're continuing to talk and you have to catch up. They are not going to stop for you. So in that sense, it's very challenging for sure. It's sad, it's challenging. You feel like you don't belong. You're even like a different, you know, like they make sure to tell us when we come, or you know, between immigrants, like you're different and you're not like anybody else. Like you in a way are a lower citizen, you know, lower class citizen, just because you're an immigrant and because you're a different color, which I totally disagree, obviously, but at the time you don't know any better. So you start thinking that. You start thinking, man, I don't belong to those groups. And not only if you want to try to belong because you don't even speak the language. Even today, there are things that I don't even know how to say, or I have to say them differently in order to make sense, you know? So it's definitely a different, you know, a different way of living. It's very, I want to say very, I don't want to say difficult, you know, because I don't want to use that word, but it's for sure different.
So you became an entrepreneur. How did you grow into becoming an entrepreneur? I mean, was your mom or your family, did you come from a family of entrepreneurs, or did you have relatives that kind of guided you? What was that kind of, you know, you went to school and you're an entrepreneur. How did that kind of journey take place?
Thank you for asking that. Because that was necessity that made me an entrepreneur. I want to say I'm the first person in my family to do this. I don't come from a background of anybody in my home opening a business or doing a business or having a business. And so in that sense, why did I do it? I think I'm an accidental entrepreneur. What happened was I kept getting fired from jobs because I didn't have a social security number, right? When you come here as an immigrant, you are given what's called an IT number, and an IT number is not for employment. It's only to pay taxes. So I didn't have a social. So I would go to jobs and they would want to hire me right away. You know, they're like, yeah, we want to hire. But when they pay me the first check and they check my social, they always call me to the, I knew the drill. Like, I go in, I get in, I work, I get called in the office and I get fired. And the word was like, come back when you fix your social. But it's not that we go to a place and we get it fixed, you know, like you have to really be under a specific law, you know, in order for you to be able to do that. And because of that, I had to find a job cleaning because that was kind of the only, not the only job, but one of the few jobs that they didn't require you to have documents. And when I worked at a place where they made medicine, you know, with scientists, people like that,
Right.
they would always tell me like, you need to go to school, you need to go to school, you need to go to school. During, I don't know if I should say this, but during my breaks or whenever I had time, people would ask me to go clean their houses, okay? So I would go and clean their houses and I'm making like maybe $6 an hour. And I have to work 10 hours to make maybe $50 because tax, right? So people will say, can you come clean my house? And they'll pay me $50 for 2 hours. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a difference, you know? Now I'm making $25. And so that's how I actually started because I could tell that I'm making more money there. And so when I first started, I would go and knock on doors. I would bring my bucket and I would bring my mop and my license. And so I would go and knock on people's doors and ask them if they wanted their house clean. And some people, you know, trusted me, which I'm very grateful. I had a client, and I always tell this story. I had a client that opened her house and said, okay, give me a bid. And she walked me through the house, and it's this big house. And she's like, I can only pay you $60. And you know what? I took any money I could. So I said, sure, I will do anything for 60. And then eventually, I ended up firing her, you know, because she's like, if I don't like the job that you do, I'm gonna fire you. So 14 years later, I fired her. I didn't fire her, but you know, I said I'm stopping the cleaning business, and so that's how I started, just knocking on doors and then people referring me. So one lady referred to another one, to another one, to another one, until, you know, I had to hire one person and then the next and the next. And so that's how my cleaning business grew. And then I knew, and so I started saving money. I started paying off property. So my dream was to have a house, right? I wanted to buy my first home. And what happened was I saved some money, but I did not have documents. Man, I have all these stories. I don't know how
Right.
but I'm going to tell you that you just, you know, whatever you want to take. But when my dream was to have a home, because definitely we grew up with a lot of uncertainty, right? So we didn't have a house that we could call our own. And so I said, one day when I grow up, I want to have my first home, my home. And so I saved money and I went to many banks. I thought that they wouldn't know that I didn't have a social. So I went to all these different banks, Science Bank, all these crazy banks. And I would bring my paperwork and I'll say, I want to buy a house. And they definitely will deny me because I didn't have a social, and you need a social in order to get a loan. And so finally, when I was about to give up after going on all these banks, I remember driving in, when it's raining, almost dying because they need one more paper. And I'm thinking, they're not going to know they're going to give me the loan. And so eventually I went to a bank, which I still do banking with today. And that was back in 2009. And there was a guy by the name of Chris. And I went to him, and at that point I'm done, right? If they want to give me the loan, fine. If they don't, also. So I told him I don't have documents. I don't have a W-2 job. But that time I already had my cleaning company. And I said, but I want to buy a house. And I have, you know, at the time I had $60,000. And I said, I want to buy a house. And he said, okay, I'll give you a loan. I couldn't believe it when he said yes. And then my realtor was a very good realtor. And I used to clean his house. The entire time I'm afraid that he's going to find out that I'm undocumented, you know, because if he finds out, maybe he fires me, and then I don't have money to pay for this house I'm about to buy. So I ended up paying off the house, and then I got a line of credit on the first house, and then bought a second home at the time when the market crashed. I bought this house for $73,000, maybe 83, one of the two. It off. And this house is worth about over 200 today. And then I bought a third home. And on the third home, I used a different realtor. And that realtor lied to me, or he said, if we waive the inspection from the bank, you can have the house. But what happened is the house had a really bad foundation. So I then decided, I can do what he does. I can just go show houses, And so I told myself that if I ever got my documents, because it took me about 18 years to be able, I just got him not long ago. I think I got him in 2016. And I said, I'm going to do this. And the very first day that I received through DACA, the Deferred Action of Childhood Arrivals with President Obama, when I got my documents, the first thing I did, I went to my computer and typed in Spanish, cheapest real estate school. And that's what I did. I took the cheapest real estate course in the city. And that's how I studied real estate. No guidance. I've lost a lot of money because people take advantage because they see you're nice. They see you don't know. And there's some people out there, trying to just take advantage of people who don't have knowledge. And I had to pay my price. But you know what? I was determined to get into real estate and to learn and to do something. And I'm a hardworking person by nature. So because of that, I started doing more and more. I started buying seller finance properties, which I still own, today. That was back in 2014. I still have that first property I bought in 2009. It's at rental today. And that's how I actually started in entrepreneur. It's just like accidental, it just one thing led to the other, to the other, to the other. And to be honest, when I was doing cleaning, I didn't know that I was self-educating myself. I wanted to listen to something, and I kind of enjoy listening to books. And I read lots of books, and that changed my mindset. I went from being fearful about losing, because as immigrants, you don't want to change a job because you don't know when you're going to find that next job, and you're going to get fired because you don't have documents. So we stay in the same job, even though we may not like it, because otherwise we don't know if we have that next opportunity, And that gave me the confidence to be from one job and say, you know what, I can get the next thing. Even today in real estate, you don't know when you're going to get your next job, but you just have confidence in yourself that you will. And that's how, I guess, everything started for me.
So you went through a lot of struggle and challenge to get here, and having to deal with that stress. I think, to me, it sounds like there'd be stress on you that whole time, not having, the paperwork and worrying about, are you going to get in trouble? Are you going to get fired? Are you going to get deported? All those types of things. Do you think you would be as ambitious if you hadn't had to go through that? Say you were just born an American citizen. Do you think you would be as ambitious? Or do you think the struggle of, growing up poor and having to cross the desert and go through all that, do you think that drove you, or do you think that's just more innate?
Absolutely. I think the struggle makes you a lot strong. It makes you desire more. Sometimes I hear people saying, I have a struggle. I didn't get a backpack that I wanted when I was growing up. For us, it's like we didn't get, I remember with my family sharing one bean sandwich for Christmas. My sister cut it for myself, my sister, and my brother when my mother was here. So absolutely, it has a lot to do with that, because when you don't have anything, you desire to have that first house. You desire to have that first car. You desire because you never had it. You don't know what it's like, So absolutely, I want to say it has a lot to do. I am very grateful to be born in the city I was. I don't complain about these struggles, In fact, I take them as very, very powerful moments, because it drove me to do everything I wanted to do. And so absolutely, I want to say if I was born here and I was giving more, I would probably be okay settling down and just having a job. And you know what I mean? I would totally say it had a lot of impact. When you're afraid every single day when you're driving a car that you're going to get pulled over and sent back to your country and not being able to see your family, I want to be with my mother. I want to be with the ones I love too. So when you're afraid of that every single time you take a car, when you are afraid about not knowing if you're going to eat tomorrow, when you're about to die in the middle of the desert, you're a young girl. what are you doing in the desert, crossing with people that can kill you, that can rape you, that can do whatever they want with you? In fact, I have a very close member that she almost got raped, you know, she got stripped of her clothes. Like, we go through these things because we want something better. You know, I have so much respect for my mother because she's the one that actually took that first step. And she's the one that, even though in our town, people have this mentality of fear, she still that step, you know, and opened the way for us, because it was difficult for us, but it wasn't as difficult as she had it, you know? So absolutely, it has a lot to do with that.
So on the flip side of that, are there any things about being an entrepreneur, an immigrant entrepreneur, that are easier for you, you think, because you were an immigrant?
You know what? I don't want to say things are easier because you're an immigrant, because I don't see any. I'm trying to look at any have documents that makes it difficult for you to get a loan, for you to get anything. The language doesn't make it easy for you to communicate with people, you know, so that's like also not helping you. That you are different from another culture. Sometimes you're not welcome. So that doesn't help you. If you're doing transactions, to be honest, the only one thing that I can see that I'm very grateful for as an immigrant is to be able to speak Spanish, because that allows me to be able to connect two worlds together, right? So I have a world that only speaks English, and I have a world that maybe only speaks Spanish, and I can be the middle person and put them together. I can get a wholesale from a person and then send somebody to work, you know, who may not get that job because he doesn't speak the language to be able to get the job that I can provide. So I think that will be the biggest benefit that I've had my entire life. You know, being able to speak that language, being able to be bilingual.
So where would you like to see your own self in 10 or 20 years as an entrepreneur? Do you have any kind of life ambitions
Yes.
beyond where you are now?
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, you always want to grow. There's always like, for me today, what I see myself in 10 years, maybe in 5 years, it's going to be bigger, right? It's always going to be expanding, because you're always growing, you're always achieving. And I think for me in 10 years, definitely I see myself owning more real estate, of course. Right now I'm working and getting into multi-units rather than single family homes. I see myself doing that. I am working on writing a book. So I'm working on that side of, you know, my story, more of a personal story to empower young women. That's kind of like a passion of mine that I've been having in my head. I see myself having a family on the personal level, but I do see myself always achieving bigger and bigger goals as I grow and as I, you know, continue to grow in this profession. But I do see real estate as my profession. I really love doing real estate. I really love what I do, you know, interacting with people, helping people that otherwise wouldn't be able to rent a house because they may not have the documents that other people require. But as my experience is, I always pay my bills, so other people do. So Social Security doesn't make somebody better or less, you know. So I do see myself helping people in those situations.
So one of the things you touched on earlier is that you said you listen to a lot of books. One of the things that I see as a common trait with a lot of entrepreneurs is this kind of streak of personal development. I fall into that. I'm always listening to audiobooks. I'm always reading new things. I'm always taking new classes and trying to try new things. Is that something that you find you're still doing today?
Absolutely. Every single day. Every single day I listen to, if we're on road trips, we do the same thing. Like we listen, I'm sorry. When we go on road trips, we're always listening to audiobooks as well. So yeah, definitely books is part of being, what do they say that saying? Like readers are leaders. And
Uh,
so absolutely.
I agree. We do a lot of family road trips because we have 4 kids, so it's hard we tend to drive instead of fly these days. And we're listening to history books, like modern history books in the car, you know, when we're driving back east or whatever. And so it's funny because, you know, I'm thinking the kids aren't paying attention, and my kids are like, can you turn that Russian history book back on, you know, or whatever it is. Last question. If you had to give advice to, whether it's an immigrant entrepreneur or just someone who's interested in becoming an entrepreneur, is there one piece of advice that you would want to give them?
Yes, I will absolutely say that take action regardless of the fear. If it's in your heart, if it's in your mind and you want to achieve it, you go ahead and continue. Because what happens is that sometimes as immigrants or anybody, we're told that you cannot do it. This is not for you. This is something that you cannot do. You're crazy. Why are you doing this? But I would say only listen to your own inner voice. Be optimistic about what you're going to be doing. But I think the most important thing is really taking action. It doesn't matter what else you do. If you're not taking action, you can learn everything about something. But obviously, educate yourself first, right? If you're going to go, for example, I didn't just go into real estate. I studied a lot on real estate before I actually went ahead. And even though I knew some, I didn't know much. So I would say action would be regardless of your own fear, because we're only in our head, in our head, we just have this one thing telling us, oh, don't do that. That's dangerous. But if you just can go past that and don't listen to it, obviously you want to listen to people that do more than you do, who've done what you want to do, but you don't want to listen to the people that are afraid, because if you do that, you're never going to go anywhere. But most importantly, taking action, because most people talk about millions of things, but at the end of the course, it's taking action what matters.
I agree. And so many people don't actually ever commit action. Elizabeth, where could people find out more about you?
They can go to my website, Cordero Investments LLC. Cordero Investments LLC is where I have most of the information about projects that I've done and renovated. They can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, Cordero Investments also on Instagram. My personal page, Elizabeth Cordero, where I'm on social media all the time. And so they can also give me a call, 801-548-0066, or email me at corderoinvestments, LLC@gmail.com.
Elizabeth,
so they can find me anywhere.
Yes, they can. And you know what? Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I think you're going to inspire a lot of people.
Thank you so much for the invitation again. And hopefully everybody goes out and does something, because they got inspired.
I hope so too. Elizabeth, you have a great day.
You do the same. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Rob McNealy program. Make sure you check us out on the web at robmcnealy.com and subscribe to our podcast at YouTube, iTunes, and on the Google Play Store.